All right. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised at this point, as long as I've been doing this, that whenever I have the discussion first, there inevitably is going to be people that take it out of context. Then I have to come back with clarity, and that's fine. I mean, I love my Bears fans, love you guys. It's definitely okay to disagree and everything, but some of y'all just really grind my gears sometimes. So, anyway, yes, we got Robert Quinn. Leonard Floyd's going to be on his way out. So, just want to add some clarity now that we got time to let all the information sink in and going to talk about it and understand. I mean, I don't really understand why I have to keep saying this, but understand that we can disagree. If you have your own opinion and you have reasoning to back it up, that's fine. I'm not sitting here telling you what you need to think. This is just my opinion. So if you want to be upset that I don't agree with you or attack, then okay, cool. But this is just where I'm coming from. Now, if you didn't listen yesterday, I would listen, but I'm going to just really give you kind of my point of view with it and clarify for those that seem to get lost in what I was saying. It was very simple. Actually, let's start with this because this is the number one problem that every single fan I'm looking at has. This was not a forced decision. The NFL didn't say, hey, Bears, you have to pick between Leonard Floyd or Robert Quinn. Everybody that counters me saying, oh, you don't like the move, he's way better than Leonard Floyd. That has nothing to do with anything. Leonard Floyd has nothing to do with Robert Quinn. Obviously, there's a connection to the position, but they have nothing to do with each other. Because I make cap space with by releasing a pass rusher, that doesn't mean I have to use that cap space to sign another pass rusher. You can use that money to go to other places. And so with some people trying to say, oh, okay, this guy had this many sacks better than Leonard Floyd and this and that. That has not, I'm talking about Robert Quinn as an individual player and in the scheme of our team. That has nothing to do with Leonard Floyd. And so I've had my feelings about Leonard Floyd. And it's funny because some people are like trying to go at me and ask questions like, all this is documented. That's the reason I have a channel. You can go back and listen to it. I'm not going to regurgitate everything. My feelings on Leonard Floyd are long documented. My feelings on Robert Quinn have been long documented, as I mentioned before. And so you trying to make it seem like I'm a Leonard Floyd apologist is just silly because I've talked about Leonard Floyd since he's been drafted. And I'm fine with the move. And so there's that as far as how that cap space opens up. But again, just because that cap space opens up by getting rid of Leonard Floyd, that doesn't mean your only option is to get another pass rusher. And so some people are like, hey, we would have paid Leonard Floyd the same money. We might as well pay him. I mean, yes, it's an option, but that isn't the only option. So saying that as if that makes it automatically a good choice is not true. So that money could have definitely went other places, which is what I said. Now, getting into the whole Robert Quinn thing, as I said, a guy that I've had a lot of respect for his ability on the field since he came out of college. Out of North Carolina. But so a lot of people want to talk about the numbers, and I told you, like, I don't track these things, but people want to take that for weakness. So let's dig into the numbers. Again, I know how to analyze numbers if I'm looking at them. So one of the things I said about Robert Quinn is that he's about to be 30 in May. And so I'm not sure I'm giving a 5-year deal to a guy that's, on the back end of his career. And so people are, again, they keep saying that this is basically a 2-year deal. Now, I'm assuming somebody wrote this on Twitter or article because everybody started repeating it. So obviously it's not an original thought. So they're saying it's basically a 2-year deal, because the guarantee money runs up at 2 years and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know how the contract works. $30 million is a lot of money. Guaranteed, that is a lot of money. The cap hit is slightly above what Leonard Floyd's cap hit would have been, and it comes out to I believe they said $14 million a year. Number one, Robert Quinn has never made that much money in his career, and he's had better years than the last year he had. Somebody a couple people point out, like, he led the league in sacks. Yeah, it was 7 years ago. 7 seasons ago, I should say. And on top of that, even after that, he didn't make this much money. Now, of course, the cap goes up and blah, blah, blah. But still, he didn't make this. The highest he made per year is $10 million. And so acting like giving him this much money at this point in his career isn't, out of normal is silly, because it is. This is the most money he's made. Now, that's good and fine that players feel like, hey, I should get rewarded based on what I've done in my career. But from the team perspective, the fan perspective, that no, I don't want to pay Robert Quinn for what he did in the past. And I understand it sucks, but no, absolutely not. I'm not about to give you a career achievement award. He's never been in this bracket of players before, even when he was in his prime. So no, I don't justify giving him $14 million a year. So there's that. And then we want to talk about the age. And again, it's not saying that he can't play, but 30 in the NFL is a number for a reason that a lot of people look at. It's going to be different for different positions, but for the most part, it's an athletic game, and you lose athleticism. And you can still have skill and technique, but you lose athleticism. And the main thing I was talking about yesterday was the first step. Like I told you, he's probably the best leaning around the edge I've ever seen. So obviously, I think he still has that skill. But his first step wasn't always like number one. But even then, you're 30. The body breaks down. Even if you're in good shape, the body breaks down. And so, people try to go back and forth over that. Look, so we want to talk about numbers. I looked at the last 5 NFL seasons, and I looked at how many players over 30 were in the top 10 in sacks. Guess how many there were? 2. Calais Campbell and Lorenzo Alexander. And so, again, 5 seasons, over 30. You don't see it. You don't see it a lot. And those 2 only did it once. They were only in the top 10 once they hit 30. And so, and Lorenzo Alexander was a late bloomer anyway. And so you got a guy like Chandler Jones who's 30, a couple guys that are 30 that might be in that top 10 maybe, but the sack game is a young man's game. It's just what it is. And again, it's not to say that Robert Quinn can't get sacks. It's not to say that he won't be able to play. But the average player, the vast majorities of players are going to decline around that age. And so then you look at which of his players in the league, his colleagues are comparable to him as far as the money he makes. And so the 4 players that the contract website brings up is Brandon Graham from the Eagles, Jerry Hughes, Carlos Dunlap, and Calais Campbell. So then you got to ask yourself, do you think he's better than any of those? Do you think any of those guys' contract have been worth it? And so, I mean, yeah, I would take Robert Quinn over a couple of these guys, probably Jerry Hughes, Carlos Dunlap. Calais Campbell provides a different level of run support, so he has that. He's a little older, but these guys are making near or more money than Robert Quinn. And you ask some of these teams, would they like to get rid of that contract? I mean, the Jags, they're blowing it up, but they obviously want to get rid of Calais Campbell and take that money off the books because they don't feel. Now, I think they don't feel they're in a position to succeed. I don't think that has so much to do with Calais Campbell's ability. But Dunlap, been solid. Jerry Hughes, Brandon Graham, we know people like him a lot. So it's not that it can't be done. It's not that it's a horrible contract, but you got to think about, like, the money you want to give is to a TJ Watt. You want to give that money to Myles Garrett. You want to give that money to a young Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. Like, this type of money is like, usually when you give it to a pass rusher, it is towards that twilight of the career based off what they've done before, and they're not always going to reproduce that. So you look at Carlos Dunlap, Jerry Hughes, Brandon Graham, Calais Campbell, good players. Do you think that if you think that teams could restructure their contract, do you think that they're still worth that type of money? I'm not saying they are, they're not, but that's something you got to ask. And so that's the group he's in. And then, so people talk about the numbers. Yes, he had double-digit sacks last year. The last time he had double-digit sacks was in 2014. So let's not act like he's just some prolific rusher all the time. And then everyone's like, he led the league in pressures. That doesn't mean anything. You can talk about that with your friends and other people and read articles. I don't care about the PEFF stats or, like any advanced analytics that are not tracked by the NFL, I take with a huge grain of salt because they're independent. They don't work for the league. And on top of that, who determines what a pressure is? And so when you're tracking something, there needs to be a common definition. And one of the big problems with PPF, I knew I was going to say that, PFF, is that there's a lot of stuff they track that we don't know what their definition of that means and how you would count it and when it's not a pressure. So, okay, cool. At the end of the day, I'm going to go to the tape because everybody loves talking. Then when the tape comes on, then we can see. I'm going to go to tape and we'll see exactly how we got these sacks because everybody, again, lost in numbers. Oh, look at this. He had this many sacks. That don't mean much to me. It's not about what you do. It's how you do it. And so, again, taking a look at it to also get further context we'll see what he is as a pass rusher. So some people try to make it like I'm against Robert Quinn. I'm not against Robert Quinn. I just wanted to put the money elsewhere. And if I was going to get Robert Quinn, I would have signed him for something different. Like I've said even before the free agency started, and not that Robert Quinn was on my list, but you see guys like a Vic Beasley, some people like that. If you want to do a 1 year, 1+1 or 2 year, whatever, and kind of let them go, that's fine. But like 5 years for this much money for Robert Quinn, I wouldn't have done it. Not even less about him being worthy, more about I would put that money elsewhere. We had projected anywhere from $11 to $14 million in cap space going into this offseason. That's not a lot of money, and we do have a lot of work to do. And as I said, pass rusher is not my top priority. I've said that with the wish list. I've said that before the offseason started. And so we didn't have a lot of money to begin with. And when you free up some space by letting Leonard Floyd go, and you give it to Robert Quinn, that's money that could have went to a Jack Conklin. That's money that could have went to a Graham Glasgow. That's money that could have went to a Byron Jones. And so we don't know what happened behind the scenes. And a lot of fans talking like they do is silly. You don't know what happened. They could have I don't know what happened either. I'm not saying I know, but I'm just saying this is where the money went, and I think it could have went other places. So is it possible they said, hey, we're zeroing in Robert Quinn, and we're just going to use the money there? It's possible. Is it possible they tried to get other players and struck out and just went with Robert Quinn? That's possible as well. I don't know. I'm just saying I would have liked to see that money go other places. And so it's very consistent what I've said this whole entire offseason. So it's nothing against Robert Quinn. It's just not the move I would have made. And that's pretty simple. So, everybody's switching it now. Oh, pass rush is our biggest need. What? Really? I mean, look, I covered all the games. I got all the comments. I have all the conversations. I mean, yes, pass rush is something we talked about, and I've talked about since last year when everybody told me that I was stupid. So I understand that, but that's not the number one priority in my mind. And I did the off-season wish list. I suggest you listen to that episode if you don't understand, because that's when I broke down what I thought our priorities were and why I thought that. So anyway, coming up, Hopefully today I'll do all of Robert Quinn's sacks from this year, and then we'll really see what's what. So, I mean, he's here now. I'm definitely hoping he does well. It's not like I'm sitting here rooting against Robert Quinn. I'm hoping he does well. Everyone's like, oh, it's a 2-year deal, and then if he outplays it, he's here for 3 more. Like, bro, a lot of pass rushers aren't playing at 35. And even if he does outplay, or either way, it makes no sense. Because all these people are like, well, he's not going to make it through the contract. Then what's the point of signing the contract? That makes no sense. If you firmly believe that much he won't make the contract, then don't sign that player. And don't sign him for that much money. And then it's like, well, if he outperforms, then you still got him. That man's going to be pushing 33. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. But we'll go to the film. I still believe he can play, so I'm not going to be too shocked by anything. But we'll see how he got his sacks, and we'll go from there. So go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thanks for listening. Oh, stay up and bear down.